Hello, hello. 3 days in a row, guys. It's Wednesday. And I'm not going to futz with her if that's all right with you guys. We're just going to look at her. Honestly, I don't really feel a need to change her out of this outfit, and she's gorgeous, so I just want to chat. I was thinking about, sometimes with the doll hobby, I think about the takeover, the takeover of the obsession that happens, and then I think, wow, it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years, and I think it's fair to say that we're fully integrated into this being a hobby and not a passing phase or whatever. But then I think, well, maybe we should do a walk down memory lane of my other interests or obsessions that have taken place. So I haven't scripted anything out as per usual, so we're going to kind of walk back through this together. In my early 20s, I would say I was way into animals and exotic pets as one example. And I had, a couple of ferrets over the years. Started there. Then I included a Vietnamese potbelly pig, leopard gecko, freshwater stingray named Bubba that used to let me pet him, and a penfish, which I think may have also been called a gar, or may have a triggerfish. And I was on the forums reading, learning, going to exotic pet shops, all of that. And that was like hardcore it. And I was also really into fishing. Very much into fishing. Freshwater fishing. Largemouth bass was my favorite thing to go for. I was fishing multiple times a week. I had my rod. I would go pick up new lures all the time, order the special ones that would come out on the infomercials that seemed to have this really realistic action. And I would wake up Saturday mornings and I would watch fishing on TV, competition fishing usually, which was actually a really cool show where you would have, the different guys that were competing. They're just off in their bass boat fishing, and then there was a counter being kept for the fish they caught and everything. So I was really into that, and like country culture, right? Like Southern culture. And a lot of that had to do with my boyfriend at the time, and learning about stuff that he knew about. He had been over the road trucker, so I was like really into that. So that all happened. Fast forward a couple of years, was really into music and really into a band called Mr. Bungle. And I was very good friends with and roommates with a friend of my brother who was a musician and just like a genius about stuff and would just dive real deep in. And so I became like an expert in this band and the members of the band and all of their different musical projects. I would find obscure memorabilia. I found a VHS tape recording of a high school talent show that they did under the name Bister Mungle. I went to a gazillion shows. I flew to Portland and met a stranger that I met on a Mr. Bungle forum and went to a show with that person. Up in Seattle, actually, we drove to. I ended up becoming friends with their interim keyboard player, and through that became friends with their guitar player, and hung out with him a few times, and got in, started learning about some of his studies with like esoteric studies, and started diving deeper into that, and got onto forums of just these really deep existential Gnostic conversations, and really it was kind of like an intellectual pissing contest, if you will, but on this really cool stuff. And finally I was like, what is this? But then I knew like all the music, all the bands they'd been in, all the different things, the different mathematical computations of the complex band, and this secret society messages within the music of whatever. So let's see what happened after that. I became became a born again Christian. Well, you don't really become a born again Christian. I would say you are born again, right? I'm not going to go into my religious and spiritual beliefs because I, number one, have a very deep respect for those of other people. I also have a very deep security in my own, and it's kind of complex. It's matured over the years. It absolutely does still include Jesus, but let's not go into dogma. But I threw myself completely in. Of course, that's even grander, right? Because this is like your soul that you're talking about. But my level of commitment and, going all in was definitely the same. So I canceled my plans to move to San Francisco. I became very involved with a church that I found. That very same friend, we went and found multiple churches and settled on a Bible church. I became, a regular attendee, of course, of church. I was in the choir. I did the Bible study every week, the women's Bible study. I did the Bible study, and then I did the women's prayer group. Then I also became a leader of the youth group, and we went on trips, and I was go to this Bible conference center and be like a chaperone at those retreats on a regular basis. Trips to Pennsylvania to our sister church, went downtown to Manhattan to share the gospel, and listened to a lot of different teachers on my way to work. I would record my favorite programs and then come home and listen to them and do study in the evening, and just really did it, just really did it. So I grew from there. Let's see, what else did I really get into? So I'm sure there will be more things that pop in my head, even after I make this video. But I got really into first it was Bikram yoga. I was ready to just swear off every guy I'd ever met and quit my job and just completely redefine my life around that because of how it brought me into the moment. But I learned Qigong, and I learned breath work, and I learned holistic nutrition, and the studying began there, of course, and completely reshaped everything. Excuse me, let me let my dogs in. Hang on one second. So, look at this baby. So I learned a lot about energy and Qigong and breath work, and studied on my own, practiced on my own, became an instructor, level 1, level 2, level 3, started volunteering at the events, and ended up getting hired on. Ultimately made that my career, after I had gone to school for holistic nutrition, or complementary alternative medicine, technically, and herbalism, and dove into studies of energy and quantum physics, and from there that led me into studying pain bodies and ego, and Chinese 5 elements theory, which, by the way, this sort of concept of casting everything off and going really deep and fiery, it's a fire trait, to go after something where you're burning the candle at both ends almost, and then you go all the way in it, you're all the way in, and then you go on to the next thing, and then you're on to something totally different. That's a trait of fire in the Chinese fire, or Chinese 5 elements theory. So when you combine fire with metal, metal is very structured, metal is very organized, metal has process, metal can contain the fire like a combustible engine, very much like our military structure, or so you have like a rocket ship, right? The fire is what makes it go, but without the metal structure and the the engines that contain fire, nothing would go anywhere. It would just be an explosion in the air. So what else? I thought of another one too. I was mineral magic, call it mineral magic, gemstones. So high-end studies of things like citrine and amethyst and turquoise, and a lot of obscure different stones, all kinds of different quartz, pyrite and selenite, and all of these different stones and their properties and their sources and what they tend to support in the energy and in the body and things like that. And I got a book from a Taoist mineral magic course that talked about the history of it and how it used to be integrated with acupuncture, and had a collection of stones, and I would wear different ones based on what I felt I was needing, and it's way into that. And I haven't discarded the belief of it, but I've just sort of moved forward. Horror movies were a thing. True crime I'm still way into, but I was listening to podcasts incessantly for a long time on top of watching the shows and everything. Podcasts are a little bit different, right? Because it's a little bit less produced than, let's say, Investigation Discovery. Because my all-time favorite show is Cold Case Files with Bill, it's going to escape me right now, Bill Curtis. All right, so I don't know. I got really into Poshmark, and I would get really, I got really into Spell Gypsy, which is a clothing line. Like, they make festival clothing, they make skirts, they make rompers, they make wolf jackets, they make all kinds of festival gear. And it's $300 for a romper. It's high end, and just up all night looking for the one that I like the best, finding the print, can't find the size, don't want to pay the money, search until I can find that item, and everything is that, and then I'm over it. Then I was really into these wedge sneakers from Isaac Mizrahi, I think is the designer. $600. Of course I'm not going to pay $600 for a pair of shoes. I ended up with 2 pairs that I paid like $60 for. Had to have them. I don't even, I'm over them. But seriously, I got on the trail and it was consuming. So the dolls came in 2 years ago, and here's what of course I went through what I would consider to be an intense phase in terms of not my obsession with the physical doll, like as intense as it ever got was, having to take photos a lot more frequently than I do now, and kind of having a doll displayed in the room I was working in at all times, or maybe holding one while I was watching TV at night. That's kind of the the extent that I went to with the doll itself. But the research, the YouTube videos, the online conversations, the Instagram, the that whole thing, the shopping, the social interaction of it really took over for a while. And it's still a regular part of my day. It's what I prefer to do with my coffee in the morning. It's what I prefer to do when I'm unwinding in the evening. And I check periodically through the day. And I've made great friendships too. And I enjoy it. And, I just am a firm believer that if you enjoy something in life, that you ought to allow yourself to enjoy that. Because I think it helps you be better at other things in your life when you do that. That's my opinion. But here's my theory on, I hope you're not bored just looking at her, just laying here. Should we change her position? That little chin. Here's my theory on it, on me, right, on why I do that. Even though in the past, it may have been, I was obsessed with tiny homes for a while, and my ex-husband was really, really into sustainability and nature and all of that, and I genuinely loved that. He was the catalyst. Also, long distance through hiking, books and tapes and 1 year preparation and quitting a job and going out west to hike, a 2,600 to be exact mile trail, which I did not make it, but and I was an expert in tents and raincoat brands and all of that. Okay. So even though it has been suggested by my family, or feared by my family, that I was just adopting the lifestyle of the guy that I was with, or that I was brainwashed in something, I don't find that to be the case. And I think that my history and track record of balancing out and continuing to be me, and really not being swayed by other people, like thinking that it was something that it wasn't, and just continuing forward with my path, has shown that it's not influence in the way of weakness or a lack of self-identity. It's full on immersion to really get something and absorb it and know it, and then make room for it, figure out where it may fit in my life, or feel complete with it and move on. I think that explains it pretty well. It's almost like doing an internship, or a summer abroad, immersion program in Spain, and you fully immerse in the culture, and it's, or going on a show or whatever. You're totally immersed in the experience. You get it, you feel it, you know it, and then you kind of relax, step out, place it in where it's going to go. So that's my feeling on kind of why that happens. That feels like it was a lot. So I don't know if you guys have had a history or a trail of interests that you've thrown yourself into very, deeply, and then moved on from, or if any of this sounds familiar. I'm sure to some of you it will sound familiar, and to others it won't. But that's where my thoughts have been this evening, just thinking about, really August is the 2-year anniversary of my entry into collecting the dolls, and starting to get involved online in terms of, I think my first video was in August of 2017. I think it was. I'd have to scroll way back and see, but my first doll video, I mean. So that's that. Should we look a little closer at this sweet girl one more time? Let's see. She's so cool. If you're not familiar with her and her sculpt, she's the Louise kit, sculpted by Carola Wegerich, or something similar, if I'm not pronouncing it right. She was painted by Yvonne Nather of HBN Art Dolls. She has incredible painted hair. She's very newborn, and she's painted beautifully. She's peaceful and, you know, arguably the most realistic Reborn I've had in my personal collection. Is she even in person? Even in person, she's so realistic. So that is her, and that's my chat for this evening, guys. If you stuck through it, I'm glad you're here. Even if you skipped ahead, I'm still glad you're here. And we will, I'm sure, come back before too long with another video. Look forward to hearing from you guys. Hope you're having a great week. Sending out lots of love, and bye for now.